Let's go to sporting history, and we're going back just over 50 years to 1974. A fleeting moment, less than 11 seconds, when track and fields bumped into gymnastics, a splash of magic, and a boy from Papakura came inches away from revolutionising the long jump. That boy was Tuariki Delamere, and that magic was known as the Delamere flip, a short-lived and quickly banned long jump technique involved doing a summersault mid-jump. And I'm delighted to introduce Tuariki Delamere, the Honourable Tuariki Delamere now. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Is it Jesse, right?
Yeah, that you got it. Nice to talk to you. How's
Kia ora,
things?
Jesse. Well, I wake up in the morning. Oh, heck, I'm still alive. Must be a good bloody day.
Well, you'll
get used to that. You'll get used to that thoughts one day.
Take us back. Take us back to Tauranga Boys College. I think that's where you got serious about athletics. What are your memories of those days?
No, I started off at Papakura Normal School in the 50s, wondering where all the abnormal kids went to school. Then the old man was transferred to Tauranga. He was in the army, and I went to Tauranga Boys College, and that's the place where we've got a great young miler there these days. Young Sam Ruth is running tomorrow in the USA, so I'm looking forward to see what Sam does. But yeah, it was at Tauranga Boys College that I really upped up my sort of interest in athletics and found out I was able to jump a long way. The funny thing was, I was in the third from I was 13, and a guy I'd never met, but he won the New Zealand Junior Triple Jump Championship in 1965 and jumped about 46 feet and got an offer to go to the USA on a scholarship. I thought that was cool.
Was that Greg Collins?
I was 13 then.
Was that Greg Collins? Is that who we're talking about?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes. Yeah, Greg Collins. Yeah, it was Greg Collins. And he did 46 feet and I think got a scholarship to University of Hawaii, I think it was. But anyway, fast forward 5 years later, I did about 49 and a half feet in the triple jump at McLean Park and 24 and a half feet in the long jump. And I got scholarship offers from 10 universities. And I just started Auckland University, talked to my dean, asked him what he thought. And he says, well, young fella, if it'd been me, I would have gone over last weekend.
Oh, great.
So off I went.
Oh, that's amazing. Was it just a gift?
What do you mean, gift as far as being able to jump?
Yeah, or was it lots and lots and lots? No, the jumping, was it lots and lots of training or technique, or were you a natural jumper?
No, I guess it was natural. I wasn't the fastest guy in the world, and it wasn't until I was about 12 when you're allowed to do jumping. Then all of a sudden, I'm winning all this stuff,
Gosh.
and so yeah. But training was like, you turn up once a week and just do it.
And I think you were doing it in feet. I've got the record you set at the time at high school was 15.09 metres. Have you happened to go back to Tauranga Boys to see whether anyone's beaten that record?
Yeah, no. They had the athletic champs about a month ago, and I belong to the old boys page, and the master in charge, he says, no, the long and triple jump records still stand that I set 5, 6 years ago.
Oh my gosh!
So I might wander down next year and see if and hopefully someone will beat them.
That is so cool. You got both records.
Yeah, well, yeah. I actually did the long jump, high jump, and triple jump. Got all 3 records, but those days the high jump record got squashed years and years ago because back in the day, mostly you did the scissors jump because you landed in sawdust. And you really don't want to land on your back coming down from 6 feet in sawdust.
Gosh, was that actually the sort of the untold story? We're not here to talk about the Fosbury flop, but was that the untold kind of part of that innovation, the technological innovations in landing mats as well?
Yeah, that's about the time they introduced rubber pads to land on, and all of a sudden, because it was in '68 that Dick Fosbury, and I know Dick, and he went to Oregon State University, and because up through the '60s, most of the times you landed in sawdust, and all of a sudden they introduced these big rubberized, pads, and Fosbury did not the somersault. He did the what is now called the Fosbury flop, jumped over backwards. They wanted to ban it, but the trouble is you can't ban something unless it's passed by the World Council. And the problem in 1968, but the council was at the end of the Olympic Games, and unfortunately for them, they couldn't ban it because Dick had just set, just won the Olympic gold medal and set the record. So now everyone does that.
Yeah. So the world had seen it and liked it, and it would have been politically too tough to then take it away.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wasn't quite good enough. If I had broken the world record with that somersault in the LA Coliseum, everyone today will be doing the somersault because it would have been a legal record.
Okay, we'll get to that because I want to hear about the somersault. But take me back to choosing where in the US you would go, because I think you had a choice of universities, right?
Yeah, well, when I jumped those distances, I knew, if Greg Collins can get buddy scholarship, I've jumped a hell of a lot further than Greg. Maybe I can. So my cousin used to work at the Auckland Star, and his desk was next to a guy called Roy Williams. And Roy just happened to be the Commonwealth decathlon champion and became a great friend. And he gave me some track and field newses and said, you should contact the top 10 schools here. So I wrote to those. I went up to the US, had a US library reading room up near the university. And so I wrote to the first 10 schools, to the coach, dressed to the coach, and next minute I got 10 offers, and the one I chose was the one that phoned me up on the telephone. Because, back then, 55 years ago, if you're in Auckland and got a phone call from Papakura, it was a big deal. It was a toll call.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, get one from the USA was like, wow. I just arrived back at International House where I was living at Auckland University, and we had a central console, and the guy who was on duty at that time says, "Hey, you got a phone call. Oh, where's that from?" America. Next minute, everyone's America. And anyway, so I went to Washington State University, out in the middle of nowhere. It was 4 hours drive east of Seattle, Washington, because I thought it was near the ocean. Didn't really realize how big the USA was back then, but no, it was great. And I spent 4 years at Washington State, and it was after the Commonwealth Games in '74 where I briefly met a guy whose name was Bruce back in the day. Goes by a different name these days, called Caitlin Jenner.
Yeah.
And Bruce, or Caitlin, had been experimenting with the somersault, and he had tried it and gone about the same distance. Hadn't really improved, but I thought about it and had a chat with the biomechanics professor, one of them, Dr. King, back at Washington State.
Oh my gosh!
And the biodynamics just says, if you can do a somersault and get your landing correct, you will go further. My problem was, as you can see the video of me doing it, I never got the landing right because I'm not a gymnast. And once I took off, it was like I had no idea where the heck I was until I hit the sand again. But if I had that gymnastics ability, like if I was Simone Biles, I would have got my ass up and I would have gained an extra 60 centimeters. But anyway, I did it at the LA Coliseum at the Pacific Champs, and the commentator was a guy who was very well known as a great American football player and great former track athlete, but became even more famous 20 years later when every cop in Los Angeles was chasing his white SUV down the LA freeway. O.J. Simpson.
Oh boy, yeah.
And so that's how I got to meet O.J. and he was the commentator, and I was favored maybe to get about third or fourth, and then there's Delamere from Washington State, and he's up next. Blah blah blah.
This is at which tournament?
This is the Pac. It was the Pac-8 champs.
Okay.
In Los Angeles, was held at the Coliseum that year, and
that's '74.
The favorite was '74, and the favorite was Randy Williams. Randy was the reigning Olympic champion. And Mr. Delamere from Washington State, blah, blah, blah. Holy shit. Did you see that? He did a somersault. And the officials were stunned and weren't sure, but someone consulted the rule book. There's no rule against it. So they measured it, and I ended up, Randy and I won, we tied the longest distance, and I got, 4 or 6 photos on the front page of the LA Times, the sports section that day, doing stages of my somersault. But interestingly, which is fascinating, that day I shared the LA Coliseum real big story that day on the real front page was that they had discovered the forget what they call themselves now, but the guys that had kidnapped Patty Hearst.
Right.
And they were holed up about 200 meters or so from the stadium, and we're in the stadium. All of a sudden, all these SWAT guys come rushing in with their rifles, and helicopters appeared. It was like a boy's own thing, and they dropped on the weatherman. It was the weatherman, and next minute they dropped these incendiary bombs on this house, outside the Coliseum, and killed 11 of them. But Patty Hearst and 2 others weren't there. They caught her about a year later, I think. But so it was a fascinating day in LA. My somersault and Patty Hearst getting bombed to smithereens, her colleagues.
And if you've just tuned in, I'm talking to New Zealander Tuariki Delamere for our New Zealand Sporting History segment. And we're talking about his attempts to revolutionise the long jump. He's in the US on an athletics scholarship, big tournament in LA where he debuted the somersaults. And what was the reaction to your new technique?
Oh, it was just the jumpers were all stunned silence because no one knew. In fact, not even my head coach knew. He says he did. He says he did, but he didn't. Let me turn this off. No, it's not Donald Trump calling me. Just me and my assistant coach knew I was going to do it. But I first practiced it, the first time I ever tried it, and I didn't have anyone there helping me. I just thought, I'll try this thing, and then I froze a bit as I took off because I didn't rotate fully over and landed on my shoulders, and like I didn't break my bloody neck. Got checked out at the physio room, and so then said, I better practice this on the pole vault pit for the next week or so, and then once I got it down, it was fine. It's a bit intimidating. You take off because our board was about 5.5 meters from the pit. And so normally when you just jump out looking at the far end. But as a somersault, you're tipping upside down thinking, oh, shucks, I hope I make the sand and get all the way over.
Yeah.
But I did. But I never really did learn how to do it properly. And of course, it got fast-tracked out of there because the powers that be, the old fuddy-duddies from, I think they're all in class with Queen Victoria, but they said, it's too dangerous, and they eventually banned it about 6 months later.
I mean, just thinking about it, Tuariki, it does seem like it would be quite dangerous.
Well, a lot of things are dangerous, but pole vault's dangerous. But if you want to talk about danger in somersaulting, I would put it out to everybody, especially to Lord Sebastian Coe, who's the boss of world athletics. What Simone Biles and all those young girls do on balance beams, doing somersaults on a 4-inch piece of wood, that's dangerous.
Yeah. You reckon if you trained up
way
all right,
more dangerous than a somersault. And, once you learn how to do it, it's not a problem. And I'm not a gymnast. I would be one of the worst people to do it. I just said the maths and the biomechanics of it said it's a much better way to jump. And you can see from the video, my feet land and my ass comes in, instantly about 2 feet behind because I really didn't know where I was. So if I hit that jump you see there in the video, where my feet landed, it wasn't as far as Bob Beeman's jump, but it still would have been easily the longest jump in history at sea level. It would have been the second longest jump in history. Someone like so let's say Carl Lewis, young Falani today, those guys would be going over 30 feet. They'd be going 9 meters 15, 9 meters 30, just because they got such incredible speed and they've still got the spring in there. But I'm hopeful one day they will allow it in. I see Lord Coe wants to put in an electronic takeoff board these days, so you can measure the exact distance on the jump and where you take off to where you land. And he claims it'll make it more exciting. And I say, no, it won't. It won't be any more exciting at all. You still have to wait for it to be measured. Now, if you want to make it exciting, let them do the bloody somersault.
Do you think you were the only person in the world working on this?
No, I didn't know this. I mean, there are others who had tried it, but they were all sort of 18-foot jumpers, and some had improved. I was the only one who was in the sort of the 8-meter range that never tried it, and there was, like, as far as I know. But unbeknownst to me at the time, and this is where this video that's out there that comes from, the Russians were planning to. I was told the Russians had 2 jumpers ready for the '76 Olympics. They were going to spring the somersault by surprise on everybody, and because they would have spent a lot of money, found the right people who had the gymnastics ability that. The aerospace spatial thing, and they almost certainly would have easily won the Olympics. Unfortunately, I came along and messed it up for them by getting it banned. So I probably shouldn't go to Russia. They might still resent it.
Yeah. Is it true that, we talked about that big jump you did at Tauranga Boys. Is it true you never jumped that far again?
No, that's not true. Who told you? Who told you that? No. My best triple jump was about 16 meters from memory.
Oh, was it? Okay. I've got a note here that says after training in America for 4 years, you jumped 14.23 in the triple and 7.31 in the long jump. But obviously, you still had improvements after that.
I think that was when I came back to New Zealand and I'd been banned. Because after I did it, I was approached by the International Track Association, which was a new pro circuit that had just started up, and they convinced me to join them. So I competed for them for a couple of years. They went bust. Couldn't get the money coming in, and unsurprisingly, and then I was banned for the next 8 years. And I remember approaching Seth Blasey. It says, I applied to get back to amateur. Says, "Oh no, you were a professional." I says, "Well, everyone else who did it with me has been reinstated from the other countries." And he says, "Oh, we don't know that." And I said, "BS, you don't know that because one of the guys had just won the World Athletics Discus Championship, Brian Oldfield. Brian was a shot putter mostly, but back in '82, I think it was, he won the World Athletics discus title." I said, "You can't get more reinstated than winning the world amateur title."
Yeah.
But I eventually got reinstated, but I remember a year before that, I turned up in Hamilton, and the Taylor brothers, who basically ran athletics in the Waikato way back then, this is back in '81 or whatever it was, they knew who I was, and so I entered. As most people, they didn't know who I was, hadn't seen me for eight years, because I've been 12 years. I've been in the USA, so I entered as a member of the Whakatane club, and then warmed up outside the stadium. Then I did my first jump, and then I could see Ash Taylor looking over at the board measuring the jump. It said something like 740. I could tell he's saying, "That's weird. There's no one like who can jump that bloody far." And so, but I disappeared behind the trees, and I did the one jump and left it. But I says, stuff, let's have it out. So I then entered the hurdles, and so finished the hurdles. Next minute, he's running over and ordering me off the track, etc., etc. But then I got reinstated the following year.
Did you miss your best years then during that ban?
Yeah, look at it very much so. I mean, I was banned from the age of 22 to 30 or whatever it was.
And sorry, you sort of talked about that quite quickly, but that was because you joined a professional outfit, and then that kind of
Yes,
didn't
yes.
really
Back
go
then,
anywhere.
if you were a professional, um, you were banned for life. There were two offences you could commit in athletics for being banned for life back then. One was for taking $1, and the other was for taking drugs. But it turned out that the life ban for drugs but ended up being between 2 and 4 years.
Mm,
Because the World Athletics, they just bowed to pressure from all the Eastern Bloc countries and banned them for a couple of years
yeah.
and cancelled the life ban. Whereas all of us who competed in the ITA were banned for between 8 to 10 years, I guess.
So you must have been
Um,
pretty angry about that for a while.
I was just philosophy. Life is what it is. You deal with it. I can't blame anybody for being in the situation because I knew that would happen. I just wanted to try and prove that the somersault was a better way to jump. But
And apologies if I missed that. You decided to go professional because they banned that jump in the amateur competition, and you thought you wanted to see how far you could go with that jump. Is that right?
yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
got it.
And I was lucky. I was approached by Captain Mel Pender of the United States Army. Mel was the gold medalist in the U.S. relay team in '68, and he was one of the assistant coaches at the U.S. Military Academy um, at West Point. And I was chatting with him, and I was having some issues trying to get my green card back then, my permit, my residence visa. And he says, "Oh, not a problem. Look, you know, jo- join the army, and I'll get it. We'll get it for you." And so I went down to the recruiting station in LA and says, "Blah blah blah. I'm a Kiwi, but I want to join the U.S. Army, etc." And I didn't have my green card, but anyway, he says, "Well, the sergeant there, told me to get out of there." And I said, "Oh no, I was told to ask you to call this number." And he looked at the number; it was a military number. So I called it. Next minute, the guy sitting up in his bloody chair with the broom handle shoved up his backside and going, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir." And he looks at me and shakes his head and makes some phone calls. And the next day, I get my green card, and then I'm shipped off to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, to do 3 months of army training, train killer and all that sort of stuff.
Mate, you've
This
had
is
a
in
life. You've had a life. When did you take your last competitive jump?
oh well. I've been doing masters often. I haven't done much this year in masters.
Mm.
I've had a few breathing issues, but when I can, I'm these days a shot putter and a discus thrower
Oh, you still enjoy it, eh?
because yeah, well, I'd like to jump, but believe me, jumping hurts your knees um, and having COPD these days, it's pretty hard to run. But still enjoy trying when I can. But my last real competitive outing was in, I think, '82. I decided I'd like to see if I can, no, that wasn't '82. No, it wasn't. No, I stopped competing then in '89. I started up again thinking, oh, yeah, there's not too many good long jumpers in New Zealand. Maybe I can qualify for the Commonwealth Games at Auckland. And that didn't last very long. I entered the 200 meters, got halfway around, and the hamstring says, "Look, you silly old fart, this is not going to work," and I managed to tear it. So,
Gee.
but
Wait, are
but
you?
I still enjoy following it.
You never got to an Olympics, Tuariki?
No, I was in '76. I was already professional. In '72, unless you went back to New Zealand. New Zealand athletics back then didn't recognise anything you did overseas if you weren't actually competing for New Zealand.
Oh, right.
And that was the regime that Seth Blasey ran back then. I thought he was terrible for New Zealand athletics.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that wouldn't let Les Mills compete in the 74 Commonwealth Games. But yeah, look, I don't regret, anything I did. Yeah, looking back on it, I wish I'd had the opportunities, from those years, sort of, 22 through to 27, 28, especially with what's available today. But hey, I still had a pretty good go, and it achieved me a lot. I got a scholarship to America, and got to go to West Point. Got to meet a few people that were in the history books.
Yeah, it's got some great stories as well.
Yeah.
And you later went on, if people recognise your name, to become immigration minister. Do you find yourself recognised more for that or for the long jump?
Oh no, well, I'm still doing immigration. I'm still out there bashing away, and I'm actually fighting for a couple of young girls. I don't know if you saw Steve Corgallan's article a couple of weeks ago about 2 young Vietnamese girls.
Huh.
They're just screaming geniuses. The older one, she's 18 now, but she got a bachelor's at the age of 12, a master's at the age of 14, and finished a PhD, and been working as a cybersecurity specialist. And her younger sister is 14 or 15. She's doing a dual masters at Harvard and AUT. And we want to deport them. And I'm trying to get to the minister. Says why? Doesn't make sense. But yeah. So I still pick and choose on immigration cases. I founded the company TDA and gave that to my daughter. She's the boss now.
Well,
she
been
still
great.
makes me work.
It's been great having you on the radio this afternoon. Thank you very much for remembering those old
Enjoyed
days
it.
with us.
Okay, Jess,
nice to
you
chat
take
to you.
care.
Thanks. Tuariki Delamere here for New Zealand sporting history. He jumped at the 1974 Commonwealth Games, but actually probably his big contribution to athletics was that Delamere flip, and who knows what would have happened with the long jump if that had been allowed, or if the Russians had taken it to the Olympics in 1976 as they planned to do.